I'd spent my entire life planning my sister's dream wedding, so when she chose someone else as maid of honor because I was too dramatic, I thought nothing could hurt more. I was wrong. There are some moments in life you just assume are written in stone. For me, one of those was being my sister Chloe's maid of honor. We'd spent our entire childhood planning our dream weddings with Barbie dolls. Mine was always the logistical genius behind Ken and Barbie's big day, while Chloe focused on the fluff. It was just how we were. I was the planner, the doer, the one who cared about the details. She was the dreamer, the one who floated through life on a cloud of good intentions. So when her long-term boyfriend Mark finally proposed, I immediately kicked into gear. I started a private Pinterest board. I researched venues in her dream location. I even started a spreadsheet of potential vendors. I was bursting with excitement, not just for her, but for us. This was going to be our project, the culmination of all those childhood promises. A week after the engagement, she invited me out for coffee. This was it, I thought, the official ask. I could barely contain my smile as I sat down opposite her. But she wasn't smiling. She was nervously stirring her latte, avoiding my eyes. "So," she began, her voice tight, "about the wedding party. I've asked Jessica to be my maid of honor." The name hung in the air between us. Jessica, her friend from yoga. A perfectly nice, perfectly beige person who I'm pretty sure thinks a crisis is when the kombucha tap is out. My brain short-circuited. "Jessica?" I managed to squeak out. "But I thought—" "Look," she cut me off, finally meeting my gaze. "I love you. You know I do, but you get so worked up about things. Remember Mom's 60th birthday?" I remembered. I remembered the caterer canceling 2 days before, and me pulling an all-nighter to find a replacement. I remembered crying for 10 minutes out of sheer stress before I solved the problem and threw my mom the best party of her life. Chloe remembered my 10 minutes of tears. "I need someone who can be calm," she continued, her voice gaining a condescending, gentle tone that made my skin crawl. "My wedding needs to be a stress-free zone, and you're too dramatic. I can't risk that. Too dramatic." The two words she'd been using to dismiss my passion my entire life. When I was heartbroken over a friendship ending, I was being dramatic. When I was furious about an injustice at work, I was being dramatic. When I cared deeply and fiercely about making things perfect for the people I loved, I was being dramatic. I was demoted to a regular bridesmaid, an afterthought. I swallowed my pride and my hurt, vowing to be the most low-key, non-dramatic bridesmaid in history. I would smile, wear the ugly dress, and not care one single bit. The next few weeks were a blur of fake smiles in the group chat, and a growing sense of dread. Jessica, the new MOH, was clearly in over her head, asking basic questions and seeming overwhelmed by the simplest tasks. I bit my tongue so hard it bled. It wasn't my problem anymore. Then, one Tuesday night, I was scrolling numbly through pictures of hideous bridesmaid dresses when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Hello?" A brisk, professional voice replied. "Hi, is this the bride's sister?" "My name is Evelyn, and I'm Chloe's wedding planner. I was given your number because we have a situation." My heart started to pound. A situation? With Chloe's wedding? "What kind of situation?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. There was a heavy sigh on the other end of the line. "The kind where the venue just called to say they've double-booked her date. The wedding is off unless we can find a new place in the next 24 hours. And, to be perfectly frank, your sister and her maid of honor are having a complete meltdown. I was told you were the one who gets things done." I almost laughed. The bitter, ugly sound got caught in my throat. Me? The one who gets things done? Wasn't that just a different way of saying too dramatic? The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. A part of me, the petty, wounded part, wanted to say, "Sorry, you must have the wrong number. You're looking for someone calm and stress-free. Try Jessica." But I couldn't, because underneath the hurt, she was still my sister. And the mental image of her dream wedding, the one we'd whispered about under the covers for years, turning into a pile of ash, was more than I could bear. "Where are they?" I asked, my voice flat and devoid of the emotion Chloe hated so much. "Your parents' house," Evelyn said, a note of relief in her own voice. "I suggested they go somewhere familiar. Frankly, your sister's apartment was becoming a hazard of thrown pillows and shattered dreams. And the maid of honor, well, her primary solution was to suggest everyone try some calming breath work." Of course it was. I clenched my jaw. "I'm on my way." I didn't break any speed limits, but I drove with a purpose I hadn't felt in weeks. The anger was still there, simmering under the surface, but it was morphing into something else. Focus. This was a crisis. And despite what Chloe thought, a crisis is where I thrive. When I walked into my parents' living room, it was exactly as Evelyn had described. Chloe was curled up on the sofa, her face puffy and stained with mascara, hiccuping small, pathetic sobs into a cushion. My mom was hovering, wringing her hands, and Jessica was sitting primly in an armchair, scrolling through her phone. "I'm looking at some lovely public gazebos we could rent," she announced to the room, completely oblivious to the sheer absurdity of her statement. "They have a very rustic, organic feel." My mother's eyes met mine over Chloe's head, and I saw a wave of pure, undiluted relief wash over her face. She knew. She'd always known who to call when things fell apart. I didn't say hello. I didn't comfort Chloe. I walked to the center of the room, pulled out my phone, and opened my notes app. "Okay," I said, and the room fell silent. Even Chloe's sobs quieted. "Evelyn has already sent me the contract from the original venue. Their cancellation clause is ironclad. We're getting the deposit back in full, plus a penalty fee. That's our new budget for a last-minute venue." I looked at Chloe, really looked at her. Her eyes were wide, a flicker of hope warring with shame. "I have 3 venues on a list I made weeks ago that I know have a wedding-in-a-week package. They're expensive, but with the penalty fee we might just be able to swing one. I need to make calls, and I need to do it now. The florist, the caterer, the band, they all need a new address by morning, or they start canceling too." I took a breath, letting the weight of my words sink in. Jessica looked up from her phone, a confused frown on her face. "Well, I'm not sure that's the right energy to bring." I held up a hand, cutting her off without even looking at her. My eyes were locked on my sister. "I can do this, Chloe. I can fix this for you. But I'm not doing it as a bridesmaid. I'm not doing it from the sidelines while your calm maid of honor looks up park benches. If you want me to save your wedding, you need to fire her right now. And you need to ask me to be your maid of honor." In front of everyone, the air in the room went from stale with grief to sharp with tension. Jessica's mouth fell open, a perfect little O of indignation. My mother froze mid-hand wring. And Chloe. Chloe looked at me as if she'd never seen me before. Her tear-filled eyes scanned my face, searching for a hint of a bluff. She found none. For a long, agonizing minute, the only sound was the hum of my parents' refrigerator from the kitchen. Chloe's gaze flickered from my set jaw to Jessica's uselessly placid face and back again. I could see the battle raging behind her eyes, her pride versus the smoking crater of her wedding plans. Finally, she took a shuddering breath and pushed herself up from the sofa. She wouldn't look at Jessica. Her eyes were fixed on the floor as she mumbled, "Jessica, I think it's best if my sister takes over. I'm sorry." "Sorry." Jessica stood up, clutching her phone like a shield. "Chloe, we talked about this. About surrounding yourself with calming energy. This is the opposite of that. This is drama." There was that word again. I didn't even flinch. I just raised an eyebrow at my sister. Chloe finally looked up, her expression hardening. "My wedding venue just canceled a month out, Jessica. I don't need calming energy. I need a miracle. Please, just go." The dismissal was quiet, but brutal. Jessica shot me a look of pure venom, grabbed her purse, and left. The click of her heels on the hardwood floor, an angry staccato retreat. The moment the door closed, I didn't wait for hugs or apologies. I was already dialing. For the next 2 hours, I was a machine. I was a tornado of logistics and polite but firm demands. I had my dad on his laptop confirming the penalty payment from the original venue. I had my mom calling the rental company to put a hold on their inventory just in case. I paced the living room, my phone pressed to my ear, charm and iron in my voice as I called my top 3 venues. The first 2 were booked. It was a long shot, but on the third call, I hit gold. "The Starlight Conservatory?" a cheerful voice answered. It was a stunning glass-house botanical garden, a place Chloe had drooled over but dismissed as being booked years in advance. "Hi there," I said, my voice smooth as butter. "I know this is an insane request, but I'm looking to book a full wedding for next month. Specifically, the 18th. I heard a keyboard clacking. "The 18th? "You're in luck. We just had a cancellation for that Saturday, literally this morning. The client is forfeiting their entire deposit, but the space is yours if you can pay our last-minute premium and confirm within the hour." I looked at my dad, who held up his laptop screen showing the transfer from the old venue. The penalty fee they'd paid covered the premium almost to the dollar. It was fate. "We'll take it," I said, a grin spreading across my face. "Email the contract." "You'll have a deposit in 20 minutes. I hung up and faced my family. "The Starlight Conservatory," I announced. "Your dream venue, Chloe." "It's yours." Chloe let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh. She threw her arms around me, burying her face in my shoulder. "You did it," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "You were right. You're not dramatic. You're amazing." For a second, all the hurt melted away. It was all worth it. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I pulled it out, expecting it to be Evelyn, the planner. But it was Mark, the groom. "Hey," I answered cheerfully. "Guess what?" Crisis averted. His voice was strained, quiet. "Listen, can you step outside? Don't let Chloe know you're talking to me." A cold dread washed over me. I walked out onto the front porch, my heart pounding a new ugly rhythm. "Mark, what's wrong? We got a new venue, it's all fine." "It's not fine," he whispered, his voice cracking. "It's not about the venue. It's about the money, all of it, the wedding fund. It's gone." My blood ran cold. "Gone? What do you mean, gone?" I gripped the porch railing, the world tilting slightly on its axis. "Mark, we just used the penalty fee from the old venue to book the new one. The rest of the vendors are expecting their final payments." "I know," he croaked, and the despair in his voice was chilling. I made a bad investment." "A sure thing," my friend recommended. I thought I could double the wedding fund, give Chloe an even better honeymoon. I kept thinking it would bounce back, but it didn't. I lost everything. The deposit we just paid. That's literally all we have left. The picture suddenly became horribly clear. This wasn't just a wedding crisis. This was a life crisis. Chloe was inside, crying with relief, thinking her dream was saved, while outside, the whole foundation was crumbling. The anger I'd felt before was nothing compared to the cold fury that settled in my chest now. This wasn't drama. This was a betrayal. I took a deep, steadying breath. "You're going to walk into that house right now," I said, my voice dangerously low. "You're going to sit down next to the woman you're supposed to marry, and you are going to tell her the truth. Every last word. If you don't, I will." I hung up before he could respond. A few minutes later, the front door opened and Mark stumbled out, looking like a ghost. I stepped aside and watched him go into the living room. I didn't follow. I just listened to the murmur of his voice, followed by a sharp, broken cry from my sister that was 1,000 times more painful than her earlier tears. The next hour was a blur of raw emotion. There were shouts, accusations, and heartbreaking sobs. Through it all, I stayed on the porch, giving them space. I wasn't just fixing a venue anymore. I was witnessing the potential end of a relationship. When my dad finally came out, his face was grim. "She's called it off," he said softly. "The wedding is over." My first instinct was relief. Good. She deserved better than a man who would gamble away their future. But then I thought of Chloe, curled up inside, her dream not just canceled, but shattered by deceit. The wedding might be off, but she still had a beautiful dress, a non-refundable photographer, and a contract for the most stunning venue in the city, the Starlight Conservatory. An idea sparked in my mind, audacious and a little bit crazy. I walked back inside. Chloe was on the sofa again, my mom holding her. She looked utterly broken. "Chloe," I said gently. She looked up, her eyes hollow. "The wedding's off." "I know," I said, sitting beside her. "He's a fool, and you're better off. But that doesn't mean the day has to be a total loss." She just stared at me blankly. "What are you talking about?" "We have the Starlight Conservatory for the 18th, I said, my voice gaining strength. "We have a caterer, a band, and a florist all ready to go. The deposits are paid. So let's not call it a wedding. Let's call it a party. A celebration of you. A dodged-a-bullet bash. Invite all our friends and family. Wear the gorgeous dress. Eat the amazing food. Dance with people who truly love you. Let's take the worst day of your life and turn it into the beginning of your best one." A flicker of light returned to her eyes. She looked from me to my mom, then back again. A small, watery smile touched her lips. "A dodged-a-bullet party," she whispered. Is that too dramatic?" I smiled back, my own eyes stinging. "No," I said, taking her hand. "It's absolutely perfect." And it was. The party was legendary. Chloe was radiant, surrounded by genuine love and support. There were no vows, just toasts to her strength and her future. Watching her dance with our dad in that beautiful glass house, I knew I hadn't just saved her wedding. I'd helped save her. And in the end, that was the only detail that ever really mattered.